What if the greatest fortune of your life is not waiting somewhere in the future, but waiting for you to recognize it within yourself today? What if the missing ingredient between where you are and where you long to be is not more effort, more luck, or better timing, but a single shift in consciousness? Most people spend their lives chasing opportunities, believing that happiness will arrive after success. They wait for the promotion before they feel accomplished, the money before they feel wealthy, and the miracle before they feel grateful. Yet life has always worked in the opposite direction. The inner world gives birth to the outer world. The feeling comes first, and the evidence follows. Today, I invite you to stop living as someone who is waiting for the jackpot and begin living as someone who has already received it. Not because you are pretending, but because consciousness creates experience. When you embody abundance before it appears, you align yourself with a reality that has no choice but to reflect your inner state. So, as you listen, don't simply hear these words. Feel them. Imagine the wish fulfilled. Walk in the certainty of the unseen. Because the moment you truly feel the jackpot before it arrives is the moment your entire world begins to change. There is a principle that quietly governs every transformation in life, yet very few people ever recognize it. Most believe that circumstances create emotions. They think they will feel wealthy after money arrives, secure after success appears, and joyful after their dreams come true. But the deeper truth is exactly the opposite. The feeling comes first, and the visible experience follows. Every external achievement begins as an internal conviction. The world you see around you is constantly reflecting the state you occupy within yourself. If you continue to identify with lack, delay, and uncertainty, life faithfully mirrors those assumptions. But when you choose to feel the fulfillment of your desire before any evidence exists, you activate a different pattern of experience. You stop living as a spectator waiting for fortune and become the author of the reality that is unfolding. Imagine someone holding a winning lottery ticket without knowing it has already been verified. Their behavior would still be cautious, fearful, and uncertain because their consciousness has not yet accepted the truth. Now imagine another person who has already received confirmation that they have won. They may still be standing in the same room, wearing the same clothes, with the same bank balance, but everything about their posture changes. Their worries begin to disappear. Their decisions become confident. Their conversations carry hope instead of anxiety. Nothing visible has changed except one thing: their inner state. That shift in feeling alters every action they take. In the same way, when you feel the jackpot before it arrives, you begin to move through life from certainty rather than desperation. This is not about pretending or denying present circumstances. It is about recognizing that consciousness is the birthplace of every future experience. Before a building stands on the ground, it exists as a complete design in the architect's mind. Before a song is heard, it exists as inspiration within the musician. Before any achievement becomes visible, it has already been accepted inwardly. Your task is not to force the world to change, but to become the person who naturally expects the outcome you desire. That expectation is expressed through feeling more than words. 1,000 affirmations spoken with doubt cannot equal one genuine moment of inward conviction. Notice how often people postpone happiness until tomorrow. They tell themselves, "When I earn more money, then I'll relax. When I find the right opportunity, then I'll believe in myself. When success arrives, then I'll celebrate." Yet tomorrow keeps moving because the emotional state remains tied to conditions that have not yet appeared. The secret is to reverse the process completely. Celebrate first, feel grateful first, walk with quiet confidence first. These emotions are not rewards for success, They are invitations for success to enter your experience. The subconscious mind accepts repeated feelings as truth. It does not distinguish between what is physically present and what is vividly experienced within. If day after day you occupy the emotional atmosphere of abundance, security, and fulfillment, those impressions sink deeper until they become your natural identity. Eventually, your choices begin to reflect that identity without conscious effort. You pursue opportunities you once avoided. You speak with greater assurance. You recognize possibilities that fear previously hid from your attention. The transformation appears mysterious to others, but it began the moment you changed your feeling. Many people misunderstand this idea because they believe feeling fulfilled means becoming passive. In reality, genuine inner certainty inspires action instead of replacing it. A person who knows the harvest is coming still plants the seed and waters the field, but they no longer work with panic. Their effort is guided by expectation rather than desperation. They are not trying to prove something will happen, they are participating in what they already believe is unfolding. This calm confidence often becomes the very quality that attracts opportunities, relationships, and unexpected breakthroughs. Think about moments in your own life when everything seemed to align perfectly. Often there was a period beforehand when you simply knew things would work out, even without evidence. That quiet certainty influenced your attitude, and your attitude influenced your actions. The feeling preceded the fortune. The outer event merely confirmed what your inner world had already accepted. This pattern is not limited to rare occasions. It can become a deliberate way of living. So begin each morning by asking yourself a different question. Instead of wondering what you need to do to deserve your dreams, ask yourself how you would feel if they were already yours. Would you smile more easily? Would you speak with greater confidence? Would you forgive old disappointments? Would you stop comparing yourself to others? Then choose to embody those qualities today. Let your emotions become a preview of your future instead of a reaction to your present. The greatest jackpot is not simply money or success. It is discovering that you have the ability to select the state from which you live. Once you realize that your feelings are creative rather than merely responsive, you stop waiting for life to give you permission to be fulfilled. You become fulfilled first. And when that becomes your dominant state, the world begins to rearrange itself in ways that seem almost impossible to explain. The feeling comes before the fortune, and the person who masters that truth no longer lives at the mercy of circumstances. They become the quiet cause behind them. The greatest mistake people make is believing they must wait for proof before they allow themselves to think, feel, and act differently. They believe the promotion must come before confidence, the relationship must arrive before joy, or the wealth must appear before peace of mind. Yet the deepest transformation begins the moment you stop asking the world for permission to become the version of yourself you were meant to be. The person who has already won does not walk through life with constant doubt or fear. They carry an invisible certainty that shapes every decision, every conversation, and every expectation. To live as the one who has already won is to step into that state before the evidence appears and make it your natural home. Think about how a champion behaves before stepping onto the field. Their confidence is not built in the final seconds of victory. It has been cultivated long before the competition begins. They have rehearsed success in their mind so many times that when the opportunity arrives, it feels familiar instead of surprising. In the same way, your inner world must become familiar with fulfillment before your outer world can reflect it. If your imagination is filled with defeat, disappointment, and limitation, then even when opportunities appear, you may unconsciously reject them because they do not match the identity you have accepted. But when you consistently identify as someone who has already succeeded, your mind begins searching for evidence that supports that belief. Living as though you have already won does not mean pretending to possess things you do not have or ignoring responsibilities. It means adopting the emotional and mental posture of the person you intend to become. Ask yourself, how would the successful version of you respond to setbacks? Would they collapse into fear at the first obstacle, or would they see it as temporary? How would they speak about the future? Would they constantly predict failure, or would they expect solutions? How would they carry themselves in ordinary moments? The answers to these questions reveal the state you are invited to embody now, not someday in the future. Every identity comes with a set of automatic habits. A person who believes they are unlucky notices every disappointment while overlooking every opportunity. A person who believes they are capable sees possibilities where others see barriers. The external difference between these two individuals may be small, but the internal difference is enormous. Their assumptions create different perceptions, and those perceptions create different experiences. The world often appears to confirm what they already believe because they interact with life through the filter of their chosen identity. One of the most powerful shifts occurs when you stop introducing yourself to your own mind as someone who is trying and begin recognizing yourself as someone who is becoming. Instead of saying, I hope things work out for me, quietly affirm within, I move through life with confidence because my path is already unfolding. This subtle change replaces uncertainty with expectation. It trains your consciousness to dwell in possibility instead of fear. Over time, this repeated assumption begins influencing your reactions so naturally that confidence no longer feels forced. It becomes part of who you are. Notice how winners often remain calm even during moments of uncertainty. Their peace does not come from knowing every detail, but from trusting the direction they are moving. They understand that temporary delays are not permanent defeats. This same attitude becomes available to anyone willing to adopt it. When challenges arise, instead of interpreting them as signs that your dream is impossible, see them as passing scenes that cannot alter the destination you have already accepted inwardly. The person who has already won does not abandon their vision because of one difficult chapter. They remain loyal to the ending they have chosen. There is also tremendous power in your daily routines. The smallest actions reinforce your identity. If you organize your thoughts with care, speak kindly about your future, and make decisions from confidence rather than fear, you strengthen the image of yourself as someone who expects abundance. Even the way you stand, the gratitude you express, and the patience you practice become silent declarations of who you believe yourself to be. These actions are not attempts to create a false image. They are expressions of an inner reality that is taking root. Many people underestimate the influence of consistency. They experience one moment of inspiration and then return to old habits of worry and doubt. But transformation belongs to those who remain faithful to their chosen state. Every day you return to the feeling of already having won. You deepen that identity within yourself. Eventually, it becomes more natural than fear. The old story begins to fade because you no longer feed it with attention. Instead, you nourish a new version of yourself until it feels undeniable. Imagine waking tomorrow with the complete certainty that life is unfolding in your favor. How would you greet the day? You would likely smile more often, speak more confidently, and approach problems with creativity instead of panic. You would stop comparing your journey to someone else's because you would trust your own. That is the essence of living as the one who has already won. It is not arrogance or fantasy. It is the quiet conviction that your inner state is setting the direction for your outer experience. The remarkable truth is that the world often responds to the person you believe yourself to be. When you consistently embody confidence, gratitude, resilience, and expectation, your actions align with those qualities, and your circumstances gradually begin reflecting them. Opportunities appear where hesitation once ruled. Relationships improve because your energy changes. Solutions emerge because your mind is no longer consumed by fear. Victory ceases to be a distant event and becomes a present state of consciousness. Live today as the version of yourself who has already crossed the finish line. Let your thoughts, emotions, and expectations arise from fulfillment instead of longing. The more faithfully you occupy that state, the more naturally life begins to mirror it. The one who has already won is not waiting for proof. They are creating the conditions through which proof inevitably arrives. Before any dream becomes visible in the world, it is born in the invisible landscape of the mind. Every invention, every masterpiece, every thriving business, and every life-changing opportunity existed first as an idea that someone dared to entertain. The outer world has always followed the inner blueprint. This is why imagination is not an escape from reality, but the workshop where reality is quietly formed. If you can see yourself as already blessed, already successful, and already fulfilled within the privacy of your own consciousness, you have taken the first and most important step toward experiencing it in your physical world. The jackpot does not begin when it reaches your hands. It begins the moment your imagination accepts it as true. Many people use imagination without realizing it, but they often use it against themselves. They replay scenes of failure before an important meeting. They imagine rejection before making a phone call. They picture disappointment before pursuing a dream. Then, when those fears seem to come true, they call it coincidence or bad luck. Yet the mind has been rehearsing those outcomes long before they appeared. What if you chose to reverse the process? What if instead of imagining obstacles, you imagined the conversation ending with congratulations? What if instead of expecting delay, you saw yourself celebrating the completion of your goal? The same creative faculty that has been producing anxiety can become the very instrument that produces confidence and success. The most powerful use of imagination is not to picture the process, but to experience the end result. Instead of dwelling on how something will happen, place yourself mentally beyond the struggle. Imagine the relief of reading the acceptance letter. Imagine the joy of opening the door to your new home. Imagine the smile on your face as you check your account and see the abundance you once hoped for. Feel the gratitude, the peace, and the certainty of that fulfilled moment until it becomes emotionally real. When the mind repeatedly experiences the destination, it begins to accept it as familiar rather than impossible. One reason people struggle with this practice is that they become obsessed with the path instead of the destination. They ask endless questions about timing, methods, and circumstances. They worry about whether they have enough resources or whether the conditions are perfect. But imagination does not require you to solve every detail. It asks only that you occupy the reality you wish to experience. The bridge between where you are and where you want to be will reveal itself in ways you cannot fully predict. Your responsibility is not to control every step, but to remain faithful to the vision of completion. Think about a traveler using a map. The destination is chosen before the route is fully experienced. There may be unexpected detours, traffic, or changes along the way, but the traveler does not abandon the journey simply because the road curves. In the same way, your imagination establishes the destination for your consciousness. Once the end is accepted, the events leading there begin to organize themselves in ways that often appear surprising. Encounters happen at the right moment, opportunities arise unexpectedly, and ideas seem to arrive out of nowhere. To an outside observer, these may seem like lucky coincidences, but they often reflect the silent power of an inner vision consistently maintained. There is also a remarkable difference between merely seeing something and emotionally participating in it. A distant image has little influence, but an experience that feels vivid and personal leaves a lasting impression on the subconscious. This is why it is valuable to imagine with all your senses. Hear the words of congratulations. Feel the handshake, the embrace, or the quiet satisfaction in your own heart. Notice the environment around you. The richer the experience becomes, the more naturally your mind accepts it as part of your identity. You are no longer wishing for a future event. You are rehearsing a reality that feels alive within you. As this inner experience deepens, something subtle begins to change. Your reactions to everyday situations become different. You stop interpreting temporary setbacks as permanent failures, because your imagination has already anchored you in the final outcome. Fear loses some of its influence because you have repeatedly visited the place where everything works out. Patience becomes easier because your mind is occupied with certainty instead of doubt. Even your conversations shift, reflecting hope rather than hesitation. The invisible scene you have nurtured begins shaping the visible version of yourself. The world often underestimates imagination because it cannot be measured in the same way as physical action. Yet every meaningful action is guided by an internal image. An architect sees the building before construction begins. An artist sees the painting before the brush touches the canvas. An athlete sees the victory before the competition starts. Likewise, your future is influenced by the pictures you consistently hold within yourself. If those pictures are filled with limitation, your life tends to follow that direction. If they are filled with abundance and possibility, you begin moving toward those experiences with greater confidence and clarity. The jackpot you seek may represent financial freedom, meaningful relationships, personal healing, or a purpose that gives your life new meaning. Whatever form it takes, its first appearance will always be in consciousness. Long before anyone else notices a change in your circumstances, a change will occur within you. You will begin expecting good instead of fearing the worst. You will make decisions from confidence instead of scarcity. You will recognize opportunities that once passed unnoticed because your inner vision has prepared you to receive them. So guard your imagination carefully, for it is the doorway through which tomorrow enters today. Do not fill it with scenes of defeat that you would never willingly choose to experience. Instead, populate it with moments of triumph, gratitude, and fulfillment until they feel as natural as memory itself. Return to those scenes often, especially when doubt attempts to pull you away. Allow them to become the emotional foundation of your daily life. In time, the world around you will begin reflecting the reality you have faithfully entertained within. The first place the jackpot ever appears is not in a bank account, a contract, or an unexpected opportunity. It appears in the quiet sanctuary of your imagination, where every possibility is born before it is seen. Master that inner world. Remain loyal to the vision you have chosen, and you will discover that the greatest changes in life always begin when no one else can see them. Every great transformation begins with a decision, but it is sustained by persistence. The moment you choose a new vision for your life, there will almost always be a period when nothing on the outside appears to change. This is the space where many people surrender. They interpret silence as failure, delay as rejection, and temporary obstacles as proof that their dream was never meant for them. Yet appearances are often the last part of reality to change. What determines whether you continue moving forward or return to old patterns is not the situation itself, but the state of mind you maintain while waiting. Doubt has the power to interrupt the very process that faith has already set into motion. Think about planting a seed beneath the soil. The moment it disappears from sight, nothing visible suggests that growth is taking place. Day after day, the ground looks exactly the same. If someone judged only by appearances, they might conclude that nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are stretching, life is awakening, and unseen processes are preparing for what will eventually emerge into the light. Digging up the seed every morning to check its progress would only disturb its growth. In much the same way, constantly questioning whether your vision is working interrupts the peaceful confidence that allows it to mature within your consciousness. Doubt is rarely loud. It often arrives in quiet questions that seem reasonable. What if it never happens? Maybe I'm not good enough. Perhaps this only works for other people. These thoughts appear harmless at first, but when repeated often enough, they begin to reshape your expectations. The mind starts preparing for disappointment instead of fulfillment. Actions become hesitant, opportunities are overlooked, and fear slowly replaces confidence. It is not that the dream disappears, it is that your attention shifts away from it and begins feeding the opposite possibility. Faith, on the other hand, is not blind optimism or wishful thinking. It is the steady decision to remain loyal to an inner conviction even when external evidence has not yet caught up. It is choosing to believe that the unseen is just as significant as the seen. When you truly accept a desired outcome within yourself, you no longer spend every moment searching for proof. You live with quiet assurance, trusting that the invisible process is unfolding even if you cannot measure it with your senses. Faith does not eliminate challenges, but it changes the meaning you assign to them. Imagine standing in a valley surrounded by thick fog. The mountains still exist even though you cannot see them. Their temporary concealment does not erase their presence. Likewise, your desired future may seem hidden by present circumstances, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The greatest mistake is assuming that, because something cannot yet be observed, it is not already developing. Doubt mistakes invisibility for impossibility, while faith recognizes that reality often takes shape long before it becomes visible. There is a powerful reason to guard your inner conversations during uncertain times. The words you repeatedly speak to yourself become emotional instructions for your subconscious mind. If you continually tell yourself that nothing is changing, your feelings begin matching that belief. If instead you quietly affirm that every day is bringing you closer to your fulfillment, your emotional state remains aligned with expectation. The difference may seem subtle, but over weeks and months it creates entirely different patterns of thinking and behavior. Your dominant inner dialogue becomes the atmosphere in which your future grows. One of the greatest tests of faith occurs when circumstances appear to move in the opposite direction. Sometimes progress looks like setback because old conditions are being rearranged to make room for something greater. Doors may close before better ones open. Plans may shift unexpectedly. Relationships may change. At first, these moments can feel discouraging, but they often become the very events that redirect life toward its intended destination. Looking back, many people discover that what seemed like failure was actually preparation. The challenge is maintaining trust while you are still living through the uncertainty. Patience is another expression of faith. It is not passive waiting but active confidence. A patient person continues making wise choices, continues nurturing hope, and continues acting from the assumption that the outcome is already secured. They do not rush because they understand that growth has its own rhythm. Just as fruit ripens in its proper season, many blessings require unseen development before they can be fully received. Patience protects your peace while time completes what your belief has already initiated. You can strengthen faith through repetition. Return often to the feeling of your fulfilled desire. Revisit the mental picture of your success. Let gratitude arise as though the answer has already arrived. Every time you choose trust over worry, you reinforce the identity of someone who expects good things. Eventually, that expectation becomes so natural that doubt loses its influence. It may still knock at the door of your mind, but it no longer receives an invitation to stay. Consider how differently two people respond to the same delay. One interprets it as proof of defeat and abandons the journey. The other sees it as part of a larger unfolding and remains committed to the vision. Months later, their lives may look entirely different. Not because one had greater talent or luck, but because one remained faithful while the other surrendered to uncertainty. Persistence is often the invisible bridge between desire and fulfillment. The truth is that your future is shaped not only by what you desire, but by what you consistently believe despite temporary appearances. Every moment of unwavering trust builds momentum. Every refusal to return to fear strengthens your inner foundation. When faith has truly accepted an outcome, it creates a stability that external circumstances cannot easily shake. You stop measuring progress by what your eyes can see and begin measuring it by the peace you carry within. So when doubt whispers that nothing is changing, remember that the most important changes often happen beyond the reach of ordinary observation. Stay loyal to the vision that has taken root in your heart. Continue thinking from fulfillment rather than longing. Continue walking as though the answer is already on its way. Doubt may delay what faith has accepted only if you allow it to replace your certainty. But when you remain steadfast, holding firmly to the reality you have embraced within, the day arrives when the invisible becomes visible, and what you quietly believed all along finally stands before you as undeniable fact. One of the most extraordinary shifts a person can make is to become grateful before there is visible evidence to justify that gratitude. Most people believe thankfulness is a response to receiving. They wait until the opportunity appears, the finances improve, the relationship blossoms, or the dream finally becomes reality before they allow themselves to say, I am thankful. But true transformation begins when gratitude is no longer dependent on circumstances. It becomes the natural expression of a consciousness that has already accepted fulfillment. Gratitude is not merely a polite emotion. It is the language of a mind that believes the blessing is already its own. Think about how differently you behave when you receive an unexpected gift. Your face changes, your posture relaxes, and your attention shifts from what is missing to what has been given. In that moment, your entire emotional atmosphere transforms. Now imagine carrying that same sense of appreciation before the gift physically arrives. Instead of living with constant anticipation and anxiety, you begin living with quiet confidence and inner abundance. This change may seem invisible to others, but within you something profound has occurred. You are no longer asking life to prove itself before you believe. You have chosen belief first, and gratitude becomes its natural expression. Many people unknowingly train their minds to focus on absence. They wake each morning thinking about unpaid bills, delayed opportunities, past disappointments, or fears about the future. Their attention remains fixed on what they lack, and as a result, their emotional state reflects scarcity. Gratitude interrupts this pattern. It redirects the mind away from deficiency and toward possibility. It reminds you that life is not defined solely by current appearances, but by the consciousness through which you experience those appearances. The moment appreciation fills your thoughts, fear begins to lose its influence. Gratitude also changes the quality of your imagination. When you feel thankful for something as though it has already happened, your inner pictures become more vivid and believable. You stop imagining from desperation and begin imagining from possession. Instead of saying, "I hope one day I experience this," your heart quietly says, "I am so grateful this is already part of my life." That subtle difference creates an entirely different emotional atmosphere. One is rooted in distance, while the other is rooted in completion. The subconscious mind responds not only to what you think, but to what you consistently feel, and gratitude communicates the feeling of already having received. Consider how children often celebrate before an event actually arrives. A child counting down to a birthday or holiday may feel excitement for weeks in advance. The joy begins long before the day itself. That anticipation is free from constant doubt, because the child expects the promise to be fulfilled. In much the same way, gratitude allows you to approach your desires with expectancy rather than uncertainty. You begin to enjoy the emotional reward before the physical manifestation appears, and this state of enjoyment naturally influences every part of your life. The remarkable thing about gratitude is that it changes your perception of the present moment. Instead of viewing today as an obstacle standing between you and your future, you begin seeing it as part of the unfolding process. Challenges become opportunities to strengthen trust. Delays become moments to deepen patience. Ordinary experiences become reminders that life is already offering countless reasons for appreciation. As your awareness expands, you realize that abundance is not limited to financial wealth or material possessions. It is found in peace of mind, meaningful relationships, fresh ideas, unexpected kindness, health, growth, and the simple privilege of another day to create. There is also a practical power hidden within gratitude. A thankful person naturally notices possibilities that a fearful person overlooks. They approach conversations with warmth instead of suspicion. They recognize opportunities where others see inconvenience. They make decisions from confidence instead of panic. This does not happen because gratitude magically changes the world overnight, but because it changes the person who is interacting with the world. As your inner atmosphere shifts, your actions become more aligned with the life you desire, and those actions often produce remarkable outcomes. Imagine beginning every morning by quietly acknowledging that your greatest desire has already been fulfilled in consciousness. Picture yourself sitting in silence, breathing deeply, and sincerely whispering, "Thank you." Not because you are forcing optimism, but because you are choosing to dwell in the reality of completion. Throughout the day, whenever doubt arises, return to that same feeling. Let gratitude become your anchor rather than your reward. Over time, this practice conditions your mind to expect blessings instead of fearing disappointment. It creates emotional stability that is not dependent on changing circumstances. Some people worry that being grateful before receiving will make them complacent or passive. The opposite is usually true. Genuine gratitude energizes action because it removes the burden of desperation. When you feel secure within yourself, you make wiser choices. You stop chasing every distraction and begin acting with clarity and purpose. Your efforts become expressions of confidence rather than attempts to fill an emotional void. Gratitude allows you to move through life with calm determination, trusting that every step is leading toward what has already been accepted within. It is important to remember that gratitude does not require perfection. You do not have to ignore difficulties or pretend that challenges do not exist. Instead, gratitude invites you to recognize that your current circumstances are not the final chapter. You can acknowledge present limitations while still giving thanks for the future you have chosen to embrace. This balance keeps your heart open and your vision clear. It prevents temporary conditions from defining your permanent identity. When gratitude becomes your habitual language, your relationship with life changes completely. You stop measuring your worth by what is missing and begin recognizing the richness already surrounding you. You no longer postpone happiness until tomorrow because fulfillment is something you carry within today. That inner fulfillment becomes the foundation upon which external blessings are built. The jackpot you seek no longer feels distant because you have already welcomed it into your consciousness with sincere appreciation. In the end, gratitude is far more than a pleasant emotion. It is a declaration of faith. It says that you trust what cannot yet be seen. It affirms that your inner world is more powerful than temporary appearances. It reminds you that the most meaningful victories are won in consciousness before they ever become visible in the world. So speak the language of fulfillment every day. Let thankfulness become your natural response to the future you have already embraced. And as you continue living from that place of quiet certainty, you may discover that the life you once imagined begins unfolding around you with a grace and timing beyond anything you expected. The greatest reward you will ever discover is not money, recognition, or possessions. It is the realization that your consciousness has always been the creative force shaping your reality. The jackpot is not an event waiting in the future. It is a state of being available in this very moment. The day you stop begging life to prove itself and instead begin proving to yourself that you already possess the feeling of fulfillment, everything changes. Your thoughts become clearer, your actions become bolder, your expectations become higher, and gradually the outer world starts mirroring the inner conviction you have chosen to maintain. Walk away today with one decision. Refuse to postpone your joy. Refuse to delay your gratitude. Refuse to believe that life will begin after something happens. Instead, claim the emotional reality of your fulfilled desire now and let the visible world catch up. Remember, the universe does not respond to your words as much as it responds to your dominant state of consciousness. Feel the jackpot before it arrives, and one day you will look around and realize it was finding its way to you all along. Thank you for sharing these moments of reflection and possibility. If this message stirred something within you, carry that feeling into every part of your day. Let it influence your thoughts, your choices, and your expectations until it becomes your natural way of being. If you found value in this lecture, consider sharing it with someone who needs a reminder of their own creative power. Continue exploring these ideas, continue practicing them, and most importantly, continue believing in the unseen until it becomes undeniable. May your imagination remain vivid, your faith remain steady, and your heart remain filled with the quiet certainty that what you seek is already making its way to you. Thank you for listening, and may you always choose the consciousness of fulfillment.